Hi, and welcome to the Boat Princess podcast. My name is Nikki Vo, and I'm your host. I am a boat owner, a marina owner, a director on the Marine Industries Association, and a huge advocate for boating. In this series, I'm sharing the stories from every nook of the boating industry with the intention of encouraging more women to join me and for more women to get behind the helm too. I want to share the experience and opportunities of boating, of the boating industry, and I want you to join me as I bring the conversations and answer all the questions you've had. Boating is not just for the glamorous and rich and famous. It's full of beautiful and interesting people making the most of our natural environment and getting out there, enjoying the waterways. So let's let off the lines, take over the helm, and escape to the world of boating. Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of the Boat Princess podcast. I have a firecracker of a woman in front of me at the moment. She is Monika Lemajik. Isn't that a great name? See, I would have said Lemajik or something like this, but she says Lemajik, and I'll let her explain that. She is the Maritime Asset Manager at Transport for New South Wales. Welcome, Monika.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So we were just having a giggle about what people do with your name, with your Lemajik name. What do they say?
People often ask me if I'm a French magician.
I mean, that's terrible, isn't it?
It is, and it happens quite regularly as well. Sometimes I say yes, sometimes I say no.
So, peeps, if you're listening to this and you meet Monika in the hallway, please don't ask her if she's a French magician. But where does the name origin from?
My dad is Serbian.
Okay.
From Serbia, so it's pronounced Lemajik, but as we joked around, we're from Australia. It's Lemajik.
Yes, I get Nicola Vox and it's Nicola Vo. So, you know, the Australians aren't fantastic with foreign names, are they? Yeah.
But as a multicultural nation, you think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a thing in Australia. Yes. Yeah, we love Australia. So, Maritime Asset Manager at Transport for New South Wales, what does that mean, that role?
Well, I laugh because sometimes I ask myself that every day. So I'm the senior manager, so I have 4 streams under me. So I have coastal infrastructure, wharves, aids to navigation and fleet. So I'm responsible for making sure all the maritime assets within those portfolios are fit for purpose and safe for community, safe for our team, safe for everyone really.
Okay. All right. So give me an example of a day for you sort of dealing with one of those assets. So one of the mobile assets, for example.
Every day, every moment is different. It depends on the hour. So I could be helping the aids to navigation manager who we just saw in the hallway. I could be helping him with lighthouses. So he's working on lighthouse upgrades. And because they have a lot of heritage elements, I've been working with him on creating project plans and how we work around preventative maintenance, how we're creating future plans. So a lot of our assets are 50 to 100-year life cycles, whereas a lighthouse is a forever life cycle.
Yep.
Fleet, we're looking at vessel maintenance contracts, so getting a statewide contract to make sure all the vessel maintenance is standard and everything's to class to survey whatever it needs to be. Wharves, so all the ferry wharves come to our portfolio, so we're often making sure that they're clean. There's no, the amount of conversations I have about fish guts on chairs is ridiculous.
Fair enough.
It's not all high level of how is the preventative maintenance regime going. Sometimes it could be fish guts,
yes,
literally fish guts on the wharves. Or there's also coastal infrastructure. So we're looking at breakwater, seawalls, regional areas.
Yep.
Harbours, looking at the lot, just making sure preventative maintenance is there and any corrective maintenance is adhered to quickly.
So you're covering the whole of New South Wales for that?
Yeah, the whole of New South Wales.
Wow.
At the moment, so we're going through all the registers, but there's around 9,000 parent assets. So that if I break down the difference between parent and child, so on a boat,
Yeah.
you have the boat, that's the parent asset, but within the boat, you have engines. You could have a crane, you could have Jarran radios, or you could have a trailer that's associated with that. So we're just talking about the parent asset, so just the boat itself. There's 9,000 of them.
Gosh, that's huge. Because just to explain those that don't know Australia, which is a magnificent country, I have to say. I'm a little bit biased, but it is. New South Wales is approximately 5 Englands.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So in size. So that is the sort of volume of space we're talking about here, and that's the volume of assets we're talking about here. So, that's a big responsibility, Monika.
Yes. But we have a good team here that we work through it.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes when the fish guts become top of my list, I'm kind of like, or the rubbish bin is overflowing, I'm like, and if I know everyone can't see me, but I'm like pretty much one hand on the temple going, really, guys, can someone just deal with this? We have contracts. We have cleaners to do this.
Yeah. And dealing with that many vessels, I mean, my goodness, boats take a lot of maintenance. So that's a big ask to be looking after that number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a big ask, but it's just a job. Like because as an asset manager, you're just used to it. I'm used to just the one moment I'm here, one moment I'm there. It's prioritization of risk, and that's what's most important in my role. So I can't look at 9,000 assets every single day or every single moment. Yeah. You have to prioritize the risk. So what is the largest risk to a human or the environment at that particular point in time? And that's where I focus my attention on. And the risk could be safety, but sometimes it could be financial or reputational, or we also have like legal risks.
Yes.
We have so many that we have to assess it and do our best.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty exciting. Pretty exciting role to get into. So talking of role to get into, let's explore how you have landed here. So let's go right back to, and you're very young, so it's not a long way back, but let's just go back to your education. Now, I know you went to the University of Tasmania and did the Bachelor of Applied Science in Maritime Studies. Why?
Why? I'm not that young, by the way.
She looks young compared to me.
I'm 36.
There you go.
36. There
you go.
I'm new to 36, everyone. It's getting a bit too quick, though.
Yeah, I know. Oh, tell me about it. I'm in my 50s. Yeah, it gets real quick then.
So do you want to – I graduated from the University of Tasmania later on. There was like a lot going on before that.
Okay, so let's go back further then. Let's go back.
So I originally got into naval architecture.
Okay, because?
All right. So when I was in high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. When I left, I actually wanted to be a pediatrician.
Okay.
And when I was back in my day, when I was in school, you had to go in year 10, you had to go do work experience. I don't know if kids still do that. I hope they do because it was great.
Yes.
And I went to the hospital to be a pediatrician, and it was horrendous. People were sick and dying everywhere. Now, you think that I would have thought that was what was going to happen, but I struggled with that people weren't naturally sick and naturally dying. It was because of other people's poor choices, and that really got to me. Like, it got to me that people were sick or children, because I was dealing with children. But the part that it was for people's poor choices, which is what really affected me. And I couldn't do that. I could not do that. So I spent a lot of my 20s volunteering with children. I volunteered for an organisation called Kookaburra Kids. I did Big Brother, Big Sister. So just trying to help children who needed the help, really. And that really impacted my time as work experience, really impacted that. But didn't know what I was going to do. And like I said, back in my day, you had a book of jobs.
I was like saying back in my day. It's not that long ago, Monika.
There was a book. Well, this is when books were a thing. I don't know.
Oh, gosh. Okay, fair enough. Back in your day.
It looked like Yellow Pages kind of book. Anyway, and it had all the jobs you could possibly do, the schools you could go to, what it required to do those jobs. And I knew I had to go do something with my life. So I got this book and I was flicking through the book with my thumb and I was like, I'm going to be here. And I pointed my finger down on the page and it landed on naval architecture.
No way. You actually did that. Okay.
And so TAFE at the time, TAFE New South Wales,
yes,
they had TAFE for Advanced Diploma in Naval Architecture. So I signed up and I started my 2-year journey in naval architecture.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Well, at school anyway. And during my time at TAFE, there was an organisation, a large organisation, which wouldn't be hard to find out which one, came to TAFE and said everyone should apply because we have traineeships. So midway through my advanced diploma, I actually got a 4-year traineeship with a very large organisation. And so I went to go to Garden Island and work at the Navy base as a naval architecture trainee.
Oh, wow.
And during my time as a naval architecture trainee, I went on rotation through the dockyard because like I could calculate everything, but if you asked me what that actually meant, I'd be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I had to go into production, and I went into production into the dockmaster's office, and from there I did my RINA, my Royal Institute of Naval Architects dockmaster course, and I got like 96%. There was like one senior naval architect that got more than me, and so the dockmaster asked me if I want to stay, and then the organisation said to go to university to do my engineering degree.
Okay.
Yeah, so I actually was doing naval architecture, and I got to do, hydrostatics and hydrodynamics were my thing because I used to do all the docking calculations, all the cradle designs, used to dry dock ships. I became a qualified dockmaster.
Now, dockmaster can mean different things in marinas. So our dockmaster at our marina, for example, is I say they're actually an incredibly important part of our marina because they do so much around the marina. But that is completely different to the sort of dockmaster you're talking about, right?
Yes, I'm talking about dry docks. So
yes.
I can take ships, so not boats, ships. I can take boats out of the water too, and then put them back in. By that,
you don't mean physically lifting them
with your
hands?
I'm pretty strong. If people can't see me, I'm 5'1". I'm not a big person at all.
So by that, you mean driving a piece of equipment that does that?
No, I mean, so at Garden Island, there's a graving dock.
Right.
Which means, so a graving dock is when you separate the land from the ocean and it's below ground level. So a floating dock, you lift the vessel out of the water. A graving dock actually goes below sea level. I think I said ground level before, sorry, below sea level. Yeah. So you essentially in a graving dock, a competent person, not me, drives the vessel in. We shut the caisson, so the gate that separates the ocean from the graving dock, and then we pump out and we land the vessel on the blocks.
Wow.
And then to undock, it's the other way around. You pump the water in, the vessel lifts, we remove the caisson, the vessel drives out.
So you are physically doing what? Tell me what you're doing exactly to achieve that.
Stop, move.
So you're directing.
I would be directing. Yeah. At first I was just doing the calculations, so designing the cradle and making sure the ship was in the correct condition to dry dock because there's certain stability elements and criteria to enable it to dry dock. Or I would sometime in my later years I'd be teaching someone how to do that.
Yep.
Then I got a little bit bored with it, which leads me to how I got to University of Tasmania.
So you didn't do the engineering degree?
I did.
You did?
I did. I was doing it, but at the time I went to – so I was doing engineering when I didn't have an engineering degree, and a particular university in Sydney didn't take me because my marks weren't there. So I had to go to UTS first and do my mechanical engineering part. And then the head teacher of the other university was like, do you know who she is? And you're not letting her in?
Yeah.
And it's because I wasn't getting distinctions because I was working full time and because, ship comes in at any hour.
Yeah.
And you have to be there.
Yeah.
So the head teacher of the Naval Arch department was like, what are you doing?
Yes.
Guys, let her in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny how sometimes universities say computer says no when
Yeah.
the person that they should be taking in is of incredible ability. By the way, you said a little word there we're going to backtrack a bit. You said someone who is competent. Of course, you are incredibly competent in so many areas, so you must never say that about yourself, okay? You just don't happen to be the person driving the ship, okay?
That's not my skill.
Captain of the ship, yeah. But I have to say UTS, nothing wrong with UTS.
I really enjoyed it because it was more
Brilliant
practical.
university. Yeah.
And when I got to the other university, I struggled with it because I learnt production. So I learnt practical application of mathematics.
Yes.
And so I really struggled to do it their way. And so I used to lose a lot of marks and I'd be just, encroaching 50% because I'd do it the way that when I was in real life, how I'd do it.
Yes.
And not doing the maths that the engineer was like, no, you have to do this 2-page calculations. I'm like, but you could just do it like this.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I struggled a lot at university.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of UTS because they say to me they take a more modern, practical approach, which I think in the real working world is incredibly useful.
Yeah, I was getting credits, distinctions. When I went to the other university, I was barely passing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
so
of
it
a
was
traditional theoretical base.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, naval architecture, doing incredible things on Garden Island with the Navy and obviously illustrating for everyone your incredible competency and your ability and your intelligence as well at this point. You then decide to go to uni at in Tasmania because that, as I understand it, is the only university in Australia that specialises in that area. Is that right?
It is now, but back in my day, it was not. There was another university in Sydney that also did it.
Okay.
But they didn't have the people going, so it ended up disbanding and now it's all in Tasmania.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Tasmania specialises in maritime studies.
Yeah.
So you went there to do your Bachelor of Applied Science in Maritime Services. But you already had an engineering degree when you went there?
After a while, I got I wasn't complacent, but I was starting to be like, just fill the tank. Why are we still talking about this? Come on. And I didn't have to do the calculations by hand. I started to do them in my head and be like, tank 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, start filling.
Yeah.
Fill it up to 80%. And I was worried that I was getting stale. And I didn't want to go back to the design office. And I was at that point where I had to decide, so every technical engineer person will face this, or probably every industry will face this. There's a point where do you stick with operations? Do you stick with your subject matter expert, or do you go into management?
Yeah.
And I had to make that decision. So I decided to do my Bachelor of Applied Science as a major in maritime management. So I didn't have to do any of my engineering portion. All I had to do was the management part. And that meant that I could stay in Sydney. So I didn't actually go to Tasmania. I did it online.
Oh, okay.
So Tassie was ahead of its time.
Yeah.
And actually had online portions of some of their degrees at that time.
Go Tassie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you had achieved your engineering degree? You had that in the bag, or you were still doing that as well?
Still doing it as well.
Okay.
But to get this applied sciences degree, I only had to do the first. So I did 3 years before I started expanding.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like, is this really what I want to do with myself? And I don't know, because I was like putting it on hold and then doing some courses over in the Tassie bucket,
yes,
and some courses in the engineering bucket.
Yeah.
I was flicker-flackering for a while, for a number of years.
Yeah.
And then when I graduated, I actually got the opportunity to go to Copenhagen Business School.
Yes, I saw that. What was that about?
Randomly, the universe, I don't know what it was, but randomly when I graduated, I got an email from Copenhagen Business School, and it was a 2-day course or 3-day course on the next decade of shipping and how that was going to affect our industry. And so I was, because I was like coming off Dockmaster, flick-flacking around as I was trying to figure out, am I going to go into project management? What am I going to do? And my brother was living overseas and I hadn't seen him in a couple of years. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to Copenhagen to do this course. So I up and went to Copenhagen to do this 2-day course and stop in to see my brother in France. And while I was there, they offered me a position at Copenhagen Business School to do the executive MBA in shipping and logistics, which Copenhagen Business School is one of the best business schools in the world, so it was pretty prestigious. And again, call this the universe. The day I came back from my leave, I bumped into the CEO and he goes, how was Copenhagen? I was like, oh, you wouldn't believe it. They offered me a position in the MBA. And he goes, I think you should apply for the organization to support you. And I was like, oh, it's a bit of a I was like talking him out of it. I was like, it's a bit of a it's like not like my uni marks were great. You know, I was credit. It's a bit of a stretch. It's in Copenhagen.
Isn't it funny? A man would never say that.
He was a really good CEO.
Yeah, no. I mean, you said that. Oh, well, I'm not sure. I didn't get, as high marks as I should, blah, blah, blah. Have you ever heard a man say that?
Probably not.
No. Yeah, that's something we do. We're terrible. So that was the CEO of?
Thales Australia.
Okay.
So I'd been at Thales for 14 years. I'd been on the island at that point, I would have been on the island for like 11 years. So
Thales, please explain the difference between Thales and the Navy. Is there a difference?
Thales is a prime contractor to the Navy.
Got you.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't have to necessarily work on Navy ships. I can work on any ship.
Got you.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a private corporation company?
Yeah.
Got you. Okay. So he says, I think you should try and get the company to support you in that.
Yeah.
You sort of doubt yourself in that for a moment, but then you obviously came good on that because you did it.
I did it.
So how did that happen?
It took a lot of convincing. It wasn't just a 2-minute convincing because I also had to weigh up my life, my personal life. Because it was an executive MBA, which means so an MBA you do full-time. Executive MBA went over a number of years and I had to fly back and forth between Sydney and Australia, between Sydney and Copenhagen for a number of years. And so that was quite a commitment.
Yeah.
And it was quite taxing actually. But I ended up just going, you know what, I'll just apply, see what happens. And I ended up getting it, obviously. Yeah. And so I went and I didn't ask any more questions. I just packed up, got a number of scarves and jackets and off I went to Copenhagen, back and forth, 2 years.
Wow. So how was it for you living in that completely different culture for a little while there? How was that?
I almost got hit by cars every day. My bank card, the amount of times it got cancelled, like blocked.
Yeah.
People used to look at me and people used to, if I'd be talking in a group, because we'd have to go to a lot of organisations and people would be like, don't worry, she's Australian. Like, what does that mean? I'm standing right
here. What did that mean?
Well, I think they just meant if maybe I was a bit quirky.
Yes.
And so don't worry, she's Australian. And I'm like, oh, okay. Or they didn't always, especially when I first got off the plane, they didn't understand what I was saying because it was tight and be like, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So I slowed down quite a bit. I didn't speak as, you know how we have a lot of slang or the way we speak is a bit different.
I
had to get rid of that.
Yeah.
Because nobody understood what I was saying. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. So you're doing the executive MBA, you're flying back and forth doing that.
Yeah.
You're still working, you're not working?
Still working full-time.
Still working full-time. Okay. That's full on.
Yeah. And then trying to live when I'm in Australia.
Yes.
And every time I went, we had to do modules and then we came back and we had to do the homework.
Gosh.
Yeah.
That's full on. So busy part of your life. How old were you then? Do you remember?
I graduated in 2019. So I was.
Oh, not long ago.
No, it wasn't that long ago.
Okay. So full
30s.
on. Yeah. And why did you do the MBA? What did you feel that would give you the advantage of?
I have a big passion for maritime and the bigger picture, the bigger thinking. So when I went to Copenhagen to do that short course, and it was about the next decade of shipping, and we were learning a lot just about big ticket items like sustainability, corporate social responsibilities. Like we were talking about really big stuff and things that inspired me to be better and to bring back to Australia.
Yeah.
And that's why I was like, you know what? No, I think this is a really good idea. I didn't know where it was going to take me necessarily, but I knew that good things were going to come from it.
Yeah.
And that's why I just was like, go with my gut. Let's do it.
Yeah. And did you make some amazing connections over there that you've stayed in touch with?
Best friends for life. The caliber of people that were in this particular course is amazing. So because it's an executive MBA, you need a certain amount of time in management roles to be able to be accepted into this course.
Yes.
And so there's CEOs, captains, but they were like not that CEOs and captains aren't good people, but they were so down to earth and just sharing knowledge. Like we have a group chat and we all still talk, and anytime someone's in someone's country, they let them know and everyone shares photos. It was an amazing 2 years because it was an international school as well. So I lived the furthest, obviously, but everyone was coming from all over the world. Someone came from China.
Yeah. Yeah. So all
Singapore.
Over. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's something lovely about our industry. There are some, whilst it can be different in each country, there are an extreme amount of similarities in every country as well. So we've all got, those of us that have those international connections in the space, it's really lovely to have that and to, we know marina owners all over the world, and it's so lovely, and they're all such great people, and it's we all get to enjoy that connection throughout, and this wonderful world we live in where we can just message each other in WhatsApp and all those sorts of things. And the other thing that happens is some of my connections end up meeting some of my other connections, and then they send me a photo of both of them together.
Well, that's so nice.
Hey, look who I met. And they know that I'm going to go, oh, my God, I'm so glad you guys met, So it's a wonderful, wonderful thing that.
What's really cool is because there's an alumni for our particular course. They call it the Blue MBA. And so there's been a couple of times when people who haven't graduated in my year, but they've still come over or they've still reached out. So even that connection's been really good.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're working with Thales, is how we pronounce it, isn't it? Because it's spelled Thales.
French.
So, Thales. En français, très bien. So you're doing that, you've done your MBA, then you have a little bit of a moment at Deloitte.
Yeah.
What's that about? Tell me about that.
So I ended up graduating, so I was nominated for an award for my MBA.
Of course
for
you
my
were.
contribution to industry, because my thesis was actually a strategy on how to implement or how to capitalize on corporate social responsibilities within the framework of the business plans.
Wow.
Yeah. And so for my contribution to industry, I was put up for an award with the Global Association of MBAs, and I ended up getting shortlisted in Student of the Year. So they said the first person, but under number one, so there was 5 of us, I was somewhere in there. The person who won was curing cancer, and I was making ships float, so I was completely okay with that.
Fair enough. But, your ships could have been holding something that was taking them to help them cure cancer.
Oh,
so
exactly.
Let's never underestimate the contribution we're making to the world, right?
Not underestimate me. You get what I mean. The category I was in, I was like, you take that award. Let me give it to you myself.
Okay, so but to be nominated is incredible. Anyway, right? Everyone's a winner that's been nominated. Let's face it, because it's such a huge scope of people.
It's one person from each school, so it wasn't even in the course. It was only one person allowed from each school in a business school to get nominated. So out of all the people in the world that did MBAs, and I got shortlisted into the top 5, and I was just like,
that's amazing. Well done, you.
So don't worry if you don't go well in school and you don't know what you want to do, because you could end up, I think because I had a passion for it by that time, I was like, no, I can help people.
Yes.
I can really do something good.
This is the thing about school, isn't it? School, we have to do all of these different subjects that we're not necessarily good at, right? Yeah. But when we go to that later age of being able to study what we want to actually study, the passion kicks in and we're suddenly really good at it and we achieve really, really well. And I think that's a really good message that school is not the be all and end all. You know, some of the kids in Australia especially, they focus so much on that ATAR.
Yeah.
And how, I mean, it's just a number, peeps. Let's all try and hard for it and so on and so forth. But it is just a number, and there are so many pathways that you can take if you don't achieve what you wanted to the first time. Next year, you know, the uni that you wanted to get into because you've done something else in the space or something like that, there's another pathway for you to get in, you know. So I think that's a really important message you've mentioned there.
To put it into perspective, I think I got like 50 in my ATAR.
Yeah, see?
I didn't go to the best school. I didn't care about school. I just flickered about.
Yeah.
Rolled with the punches.
But you've also shown a bit of courage and a bit of confidence in what you've put yourself out to do as well. Sometimes that can be really important versus the numbers that you've achieved.
You know,
where do you think that came from?
I talk to a lot of friends and I do a lot of mentoring, and I think where it comes from is not the fact that I'm looking for the next step. So when I was flicking around in my book of jobs, I never even knew that I could be an engineer. I never knew that I could go to Copenhagen Business School. That wasn't even a thing for me. What I focused on was doing the best that I possibly could at that time. So my very first job was to clean out the compactus of all the drawings because some vessels had been decommissioned. And boy, did I clean that compactus like nobody's ever seen before.
Yes.
Like I tidied everything, archived everything. Everything was perfect. It was never about for me what's next. It was always about focusing on what's now and just being the best that I can be. So the courage wasn't necessarily because I was looking for something else. It was like, okay, so this opportunity has been presented. Okay, I'll try to do that then.
Yes. Wow. So entirely focusing on really being the very best you can at the moment in time has been the way that you've managed your career, basically.
Yeah, and so many opportunities have come my way because of it.
Yeah, because they've seen that focus, that drive, that passion and gone, okay, this one's a good one. We've got to make the most of making her the best she can be as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. Such a good attitude. Where do you think that attitude came from?
No idea. I have no idea.
Is it from your parents? Is it from somebody you had as a mentor in your life?
I came from a family where women get married young. I wasn't encouraged to have an opinion. I don't come from that family. I don't come from a family of like school. My brothers aren't. I think my parents left because they're immigrants.
Yes,
my parents left school at like 14 or something like that. It wasn't an encouraged thing. It was just something that was me.
So it's almost a rebellion on your part.
Maybe.
Yeah.
No, I will go to school.
Yeah. No, I will be an engineer.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I've always been a seeker of knowledge, I think.
Yeah.
And so learning I could do that. I didn't know I could do that.
Yeah.
And being open to other cultures or other ideas or other thoughts. I do talk a lot, but I also am very receptive and I listen and I look at people's body language. Like, is that really what they mean? Are they okay? You know?
So you're curious.
I'm curious.
You're curious. Okay. Because that is often one of the, Richard Branson, for example, perfect example of an incredibly performing human being, right? And he is one of the most curious people in the world. So he constantly asks people questions and wants to know about their process and he won't assume he knows anything at any point. He's a fascinating guy to get to understand. So maybe it's the curiosity and
unpack psychology here on the
on the Boat Princess podcast.
On the podcast.
I'm listening.
I should lie down on the couch.
Joe Frazier moment right here.
Yeah.
So, all right. So you've done the Deloitte moment.
It's because of my MBA was how I got into Deloitte because they heard of me because they won the yard.
Yes.
And then they offered me a role.
And what that role was?
That role was an asset consultant, but I was the asset manager in Deloitte. So I was consulting on strategy in maritime assets.
Okay. So still in the maritime space, but with a completely different company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And more of a consulting as opposed to the doing.
Okay. All right. And how was working for Thales different to working for Deloitte? Were there some fundamental differences in those two corporations?
Large corporations are large corporations, really.
Yeah.
It was just the role that I was doing very differently. So I was no longer on the ground on a ship, pointing, asking, moving, seeing things being fabricated in front of me. I was sitting behind a desk typing, writing really high-level strategic documents, and I struggled with that.
Yeah.
I didn't realize moving away from production or physically touching things, physically seeing things was really going to affect me as much as it did.
Okay.
It was like,
yeah. So you like that hands-on approach. That's more you.
Well, I found the happy medium.
As we talked about with the university, right,
Yeah.
with the UTS, you like that hands-on approach.
I think it's because that's what makes sense in my mind.
Yeah.
This role I'm in now is the happy medium for me. So I've moved on from being in a dockyard, being in the Boilermaker shop,
yes,
or being on the dockside watching a ship coming in, going, oh, your tank state's not right. Whereas you're like, go dip your tank. And I'm not at that high-level strategy where it's like, this is all pie in the sky. Is this going to work? Like, how do we prove that it's going to work? To finding that medium point where I can create the strategy, but I can also see it being enacted.
Implemented. Yeah. That's great. So because you were only at Deloitte for about a year or something, but because of that, you just didn't.
Wasn't gelling.
Yeah, you the fire in the belly wasn't being stoked up, as it were.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
I was spending a lot of time in Canberra and I was like, where's the ship?
Yes.
Should we not go see the ship?
Not a lot of water in Canberra. A little lake in the middle, but that's about it, isn't it? Yeah. So then you came to be in your current role from Deloitte. How did that come about?
I was just asking questions. So I know a lot of people in industry, who I am, plus because I'm part of the Nautical Institute, my Women in Shipping stuff, I know people.
Yep.
And I was like, I don't think that the consulting thing is right for me, but what would you recommend? And so I was asking for lots of advice as a seeker of knowledge. Go and ask for advice. What do people think?
Yes. And
this role was just in Seek for 2 weeks apparently. Like I didn't even know. I saw it and I just applied thinking, I'm never going to get it. But hey, put it out there. And when I was interviewed, I was actually told that from an asset management perspective, it wasn't the best, but it was my attitude that got me through.
Aha.
Yeah.
There we go.
It's my personality.
Yes. Yeah, you do have a wonderfully strong personality. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. You're it's very clear that you are not someone that steps backwards. I
try not to.
Yeah. You are really well, why can't we do that type person, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, don't give me the excuses of why we can't do something. I want to do this and how can we do it? Am I right?
I do, or I ask, how did you get to that point where you because I think a lot about sustainability and continuous improvement, making things, it's not necessarily about making a human more efficient, but, the painful processes, how do we eliminate that?
Yes.
So let's work to eliminate the painful processes and do things that we like.
Yes.
Instead of faffing around on purchase orders or whatever is annoying.
Yes. Make it simpler, make it more productive, make it more efficient, all those sorts of things.
So we can do the fun stuff.
Yes. Yeah, which of course teams are going to respond to that because you're taking that approach of let's make this more fun, let's make this simpler, let's make this less barriers to entry. So teams love that, right? So
some do.
You as a leader, do some have a problem with that because it's not process and it's not what they're used to? And
it's more people who have been doing the same role for 20 years that it's a bit scary for them to change.
Right.
And so change can be scary, but it's about supporting the person through the change.
Yep.
So there are some people who love it, and there's some people who there's resistance because of the fear factor.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's always fear that stops us from doing something, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
And
you don't seem to have a lot of that.
Me, not a lot of fear.
Yeah.
Probably. I do. You know what I do though? I close my mind. You know how I said I just focus on the target, like the goal?
Yes.
That's how I stop the fear. I just like, oh no, this is the best thing for the community, or this is the best outcome that I need to achieve. And so I focus on that, and it's not that I block out the fear, but docking ships, and there's chaos around you, you have to be really calm. Because as soon as the dockmaster starts running around the dock going, you got a problem.
Yes.
So you just like remaining calm. Don't get me wrong, sometimes I snap. I'm like, come on, guys. But it's not always as controlled. But it's not I don't necessarily remove the fear. I just step forward anyway because, someone earlier was talking about integrity. Like it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Or it's not necessarily the right for community. It could be right for the team. Well, it would be right for everyone then, right?
Yeah.
But it's generally about what's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
For me. And that's how I can step forward through it. Example, putting greener technologies on our vessels. That's the right thing for the world.
Yes.
Regardless of what a human agrees with it or does not agree with it. It's the right thing to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's how I'm able to separate that emotion, be like, okay, so if you can't do this yourself, what are you going to do to enable this? Can you get someone to do it for you?
So you're very of very strong principles.
Yes.
Aren't you? Yeah.
Probably too strong sometimes.
But that's amazing. That's so good. Now, there is something you do outside of work as well, which is a bigger picture thing for the women in the industry, isn't it?
Yes.
That's called WISTA, which is the Women's International Shipping and Trading Association here in Australia. That's an international body, right?
Yes, it is.
And you're the president of the Australian division of that. Have I got that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So why did you get into that, and what do you do in that?
So I was introduced to a WISTA when I was actually in Copenhagen. I got to go to Tromsø. Do you know how cool it was to see reindeer? I know that's not what you'd think women in shipping, right? But I got to go to a conference in Tromsø. I thought that was like the best thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. So I was introduced to WISTA because it's much bigger in Europe, overseas. And when I came back to Australia, I inquired about it. And there was a position in the committee. It was international comms officer. And I was like, well, you know me. I know everyone overseas. And I was still traveling between Europe and Australia.
Yep.
So I was like, oh, I'll put my name down on this committee. I'll give it a go. See what this is all about. And that was my first seating. That lasted for 2 years. And then when the presidency position came up, there was no one else that really wanted to do it. And I was like, you know what? I'll give it a go. Again, I had to convince myself to do it.
Yeah.
I had to be like, why do I want this? Why do I want to do this? And I wrote a speech, but it was really like a thing to myself.
Yes.
About why I actually wanted to do that. And I realized that, so being in maritime, it hasn't all been great. Like there's been really tough times. And sometimes I felt really voiceless and alone, especially in my early years. You know, when I joined Thales, I was the only female in the engineering office, and it was 100 men.
Wow.
And it was really difficult.
Yeah.
Even here, there are women around, but I go to the coffee shop and the ladies put love hearts on my coffee cups, and it just like makes my day.
It's funny things we find really, you know, when I go into a bathroom in a marina and there's flowers in it, oh yeah, that's such a nice touch, right?
Yeah, it really is. It's the little things in life.
So let's delve into that a little bit with the difficulty you felt of being in such a male-dominated space. And it's not necessarily that particular space, but when you've got so many guys around, there's just some little simple things that we have to handle, isn't there?
There was, when I first started, so I wasn't allowed to sit in a room by myself with the men. An administrator always had to sit with me, so I wasn't alone. Like even little things like that it made me awkward.
Makes you feel different, doesn't it? Yeah.
Or I used to wear, so we had overalls when I first started, white overalls, but they were men's overalls. And so, because they were white, they used to go see-through. And so I would have to wear clothes underneath my overalls and like be stuck in an engine room or something like that.
Yeah.
And or my shoes were never right size because I'm a size 6 in women's, which is a size 4 in men's. And I know that because I used to have to go order men's because we had to wear PPE.
Yeah.
Or the glasses. So I had to do training where you go and save someone from a tank. And the Okaba, so the face mask never fit me. So then I couldn't finish the training because I could never get a face mask that fit me because I needed a child face mask.
Wow. So it's just simple stuff, just uniforms and PPE and of being, and I know in the sailing space, the girls in that space, I think they're only just getting now specialised sailing gear that is for females.
I used to buy Henry Lloyd wet weather gear because there was no female wet weather gear in PPE. But then I was towards when PPE became more strict and you had to start wearing orange reflective. It wasn't part of the uniform. You couldn't wear it. And I was like, well, I don't want to get wet, but none of your clothes fit me, so we need to have a payoff here.
Yeah.
Like, what am I wearing?
Yes. Yeah. Henry Lloyd. I love that.
Yeah.
In major ship operations, you're wearing Henry Lloyd.
It was the only one that fit me.
Yeah, yeah. God, love Henry Lloyd.
Yeah.
So other things that you know that feeling of you've got loads and loads of guys in the same space and you say there's 100 guys, one girl, or one who presents as female or however we're supposed to say it these days.
I'm very feminine.
Yeah. You are. I love that about you. You've still got that lovely, very feminine look in your appearance because sometimes we're in that male space. Some girls go in that other direction and dress like a guy just to feel more comfortable. I feel like you've almost done the opposite and gone, hello, I am female and I love that I'm female and I am expressing that in what I wear.
Yeah.
So,
or when I wore a uniform, I had my overalls. I used to get my nails done and have like pretty things on my nails. And if anyone ever saw me, you'd see my hair. My hair used to like pop out underneath my hard hat, and sometimes I'd have to tie it up, like get it underneath the hat. But I'd let my curls just be.
Yes.
They used to call me the paddle pop lion. They used to tease me a lot, but yeah, I just used to just let it be. Like, what else was I going to do? I couldn't be anyone else.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great that you did that though. It's so good.
I never wanted to be one of the boys. I just wanted to be accepted for who I was.
And I think that's what we need to achieve. We just need to be the same, don't we?
Yeah.
It's, but we just needed, clothes that fit us better. Right?
Exactly. I mean, it's getting better. Don't get me wrong. It is getting much better.
Oh, it's so much better. Yeah.
I started at the yard when I was 19. It was not.
No, it has culturally changed quite a bit since then, hasn't it, already, which is fantastic because that is down to the guys making an effort to do so. So that's really, really good that all those changes have happened. Now, you're now at Maritime and you're in this space and you're working with a whole bunch of new people here. What support and I guess encouragement have you received here that you've noticed a difference here?
About being a woman and being female supported?
Yeah.
So I was mentioning earlier that I was asked to speak about barriers for women in the industry to the Maritime team. And I said to the executive director, I go, I don't think that what you think my answer is going to be my answer. And I told him what my answer was, and he let me say it anyway. He actually encouraged me to say it.
Yeah.
And I never had that before. Because a lot of the time if I'd say that person's done something or they've made me highly uncomfortable or they've done this, it would be like, oh, don't make a noise. Come on, shh.
Yeah.
Shh.
Yeah.
They're the customer. You know, I remember there was a commercial vessel and I was standing on the dockside and I asked he was the ship manager, and I asked him to go on the other side of the fence because the lines were coming and I didn't want him to get hit. Anyway, he absolutely screamed at me, and I'm 5'1". He was like 6 foot something, and he stood over me and just yelled. And the senior operations person was standing not far from me, and he just went, "Go wipe your eyes." As I turned around and burst into tears, and he was like, "Go wipe your eyes and come back out." He didn't say to the guy, "That's not acceptable."
Yeah.
He just was like, customers always first. But here, if I've actually gone and said, "Hey, I need some help," we have a policy, we're not allowed to go out to site by ourselves. That wasn't always the case for me, and that gives me a bit of comfort when I do go out and meet strangers.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon. I got to go out sticks to some lighthouse.
Yes.
In the middle of nowhere. That if I just have someone with me, it just ensures my safety.
Yeah.
It's not that I was ever put in a position where I was extremely unsafe. There was always security and everything around the island, but it's just that little bit of support. You're not going somewhere alone.
Yes.
Being that alone feeling is a horrible feeling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because when you're standing there and getting yelled at,
yeah,
and nobody does anything, that's alone.
Yes.
Regardless of the 20, 30 people that were standing around me.
Yeah. Yeah, that your manager should have stepped in and said that's totally inappropriate. Yeah. Yeah. Whether you're a guy or a girl. And that's something they didn't do. Yeah. So
I was on a cruise ship once, and a officer came towards me to say hello, and he went to kiss me, and I was like, "Oh, excuse me, no thank you." And the guy that was with me didn't say anything. He goes, "Does that happen often?" And I was like, "Well, it shouldn't. Why didn't you step in and be like, mate, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
But you have to stick up for yourself, and then when the others don't stick up for you is what really makes you feel alone and voiceless.
Yes.
Because you're like, if you can't see that this is a problem, but here I don't have that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we were talking earlier to your senior officer about I did an interview with Nicole the other day from Transport Maritime, and she was talking about how wonderful this department was when, and in fact the same guy that we're talking about here, he didn't see her being pregnant when she applied for the job as an issue.
Yeah.
And his position is that needs to be the case. It shouldn't be an issue. And the fact that women will always take the approach that they think it's going to be an issue, but that needs to change, and that's one of the fundamentals that we need to change. So when you were asked to present about, what barriers have you felt in the maritime space as a woman, it wasn't the pregnancy, it wasn't the things they were expecting you to talk about. It was actually the issues you've had with the behaviour of the men in that space, and that it was inappropriate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The inappropriateness, and then the telling someone this has happened, or like being witness to something that's happened, and they still just, let's not cause drama.
Yes. Yeah.
I was telling someone the other day, for a very long time, I had to share a change room with a man, and we had this door knocking code that, like, if you were allowed to be in the between 6 and 7, and I would be in there after 7, but we'd have like a secret knock. And let me just explain this to you. You had to walk through the female toilet to get to the change room in the first place. And at the time, I was so naive. I just thought, this guy's senior to me. I don't really have a choice. Whereas that would never happen here.
Yeah.
If a man was walking through the female change room, they'd be like, "What do you think you're doing?"
Yes. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. And that's not only just the place, it's also the time as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because things are changing, which is great. So Wister, what is your goal in that position as president of Wister for Australia? What's your vision for that?
My vision is to help women. It's the equality part for me. I worry that, so there's that statistic that women won't be considered equal until 100 years, but then it got pushed out to 200, and I'm like, whoa, this is problematic for me.
Yes.
Because if 200 years, that's not even my nieces and nephews' generation. It's not even my next generation.
Yeah.
And that scares me.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, what are other women going through? Because I stayed at Garden Island for so long. A lot of the reason what kept me in the industry was I didn't want people to feel alone. I didn't want people to go through the stuff that I went through and then be voiceless about it. At least if I'm there, I'm present, that I've been around a number of years and I just can have a rant. Or I can hug and support and console.
Yes.
I can do that. And with Wista, I have a big piece on, we have networking, and education is a big thing for me. So I like everyone to have the same educational opportunities.
Yes.
It doesn't matter even if you're a man, woman, whatever you identify as, it doesn't really matter. And I think getting us on the same playing field is what's really essential. And so I'm just education, networking, introducing people, just doing something as opposed to doing nothing.
Yes.
That's my goal with Wista.
Yeah.
Myself and the VP, we're creating a strategy which will go out to the team to have a look at. Yeah, it's just trying to create governance and strategy within the organization, because, if you don't have a plan, where you're heading, but it's how we're going to do that. It's not just, so we know that we want to increase. So networking, for example, it's really common that organizations have drinks. Let's all get together and have a drink.
Yeah. I
want let's have a joint networking with a port. Meet people, introduce yourself to people. What skills are out there? I get to work with some pretty senior people in government. If someone's written a document, or, a paper, let me take that for you. Let me take that. Let me show somebody.
Yeah.
I can find my way in a door and show somebody.
Yeah.
Let's highlight what all the good work people who identify as women are doing, because I'm trying to change the narrative as well. We're not professional women. We're just professionals who happen to be women.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm trying to change that, because every time, I don't want to be the diversity card. No, why am I the diversity card?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, 'cause, I was sitting in a meeting in Canberra, and I asked someone, they were talking about ship repair, and I was like, well, actually, I know a fair bit about ship repair. Can I read that, and I'll give you some feedback on it. And the person was so excited that I wanted to be involved in this ship repair problem. And they were like, yes, please get involved in whatever you want. If you know any professionals that know this stuff, we're happy to include them. And I loved that, because it changed the narrative. I was there to talk about ship repair. I wasn't there to be the woman.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's so satisfying when people take the approach that we're at the table because of our ability, not that we're at the table because we're a diverse version of what needs to be, the standard numbers in a board need to be including women at this stage and blah, blah, blah. I don't really like that.
No.
I like that, that we're there because of our ability and of our work ethic and our approach and our attitude. That's why we're there,
Yeah. One of my friends said to me the other day, she was asking me about, so people, know who I am and what I do, but she was asking me some real detailed questions. And she said, do you realize that nobody handed you anything? Everything that you worked to get to where you are? She goes, how often does that happen? And I was like, well, people did help me along the way. It's important to recognize the shovel-alongs,
yes,
like the CEO.
Yes.
That was a good
He
shovel.
was male.
Yeah, he was male.
Yep.
But I do get the point as well that a lot of women, they build everything. Like my family I didn't come from a wealthy family. I come from villagers.
Yes.
I don't come from an educated family. Didn't even know. Okay, so this is my brother, right? Love him to bits. But he's very old school.
Yeah.
And he said to me, this women thing you do, what do you do? Go to Parliament and burn bras? I was like, well, no. But if that's what you think we do, he was supportive if that's what I was doing.
In a very backward way.
In a very backward way. Like,
Yeah.
he wanted to know more about it, but he was very confused. You know, that's a really good example of what my family Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting how, I guess, for some guys that don't, just like those of us who are white that don't understand the discrimination that those who aren't white receive and how it feels. I guess for guys, they don't understand sometimes what being a female feels like. And that's why we need to help them understand it, don't we? Because they're not females. So they're like, oh, kind of don't get it. Can you help me here? Sort of thing. So, yeah, that's really interesting moment you had with your brother there.
At least he asked me for more information. I mean, that's a progressive step forward for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, it is interesting that sometimes we do get some amazing opportunities presented to us because we are female, and people kind of don't expect us to say something. You know, they don't expect me to understand the design of a boat in relation to its maintenance or whatever, and they then sort of give you that look, don't they? Oh, hang on, she knows what she's talking about. That's a bit exciting. Okay, let's ask her.
So, funny example that happened the other day. There was myself, the fleet manager, and another person, and I was leading a conversation about trailers, and this other person decides to talk to the fleet manager, and I just, you know, because you're so used to it, I'm just like, whatever, mate. Okay, I'm just like listening to your information. And then after we left, the other guy, the fleet manager, goes, "Did you notice that he was talking to me, not you?" And I go, "Yeah, but it happens so often you just kind of like go with it." And he goes, "But I know that you knew the answers. Why didn't you challenge him?" I was like, I challenged him sometimes, but he really wasn't ready for it.
Yeah.
So it's not always about going.
But I love that he said that.
Yeah.
Why didn't you challenge him? I love that he said that.
He always tells me, he's like, "I want my daughter to be just like you. She really wants to meet you." And I'm like, "Oh, please, I'm happy to meet her."
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Love that. Yeah. See, that's the kind of guys that are fantastic, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. That's brilliant. Well, it has been so much fun talking to you today.
It's been fun being here. Sorry, everyone, I waffle.
She doesn't waffle. She doesn't waffle, does she? You enjoyed that,
I've got
didn't
a lot
you?
to say.
On that note, is there anything you want to say about women out there that potentially are looking at getting into this industry in some way? What would you like to say to them?
I'd like to say that I am available if you ever need to reach out and you need advice or you need guidance or you need help. Please know that I am here for everyone in the world. And there are a lot of good people out there that are willing to support you if you do need it, or just need someone to bounce ideas off. I would also say that it's a really good industry. Like I started when I was 19 and I love it. Like, you should see the goofy look on my face when I'm outside by the water. I ride my bike around Blackwater Bay when I come to work sometimes, and I just have this goofy look on my face all the time because I love it. And everyone that I know in industry loves it too.
Yeah.
It's really rare that people don't love it. And the people who leave, they have external forces that they have to leave. It's not usually a purposeful thing.
Yes.
So if you are considering a career in maritime or even a job in maritime, give it a go. Just give it a go.
Yeah. And
there's so many people out there that are willing to support. I know so many great people in this industry. It's the best.
Yes. Yes. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for talking to us, Monika.
Thank you.
We shall have to get you at with the Wister. How do people join Wister?
There is a Wister Australia website. Google Wister Australia and you'll see the sign up.
Okay. So
or you can reach out to me if you're looking, if you can't find it.
Okay. Brilliant. So it's WISTA.
Yes, Australia.
Wonderful.
Actually, you can, if you just put Wista, WISTA, you'll still get to the international site. So, and then you just filter through to Australia.
Okay. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
So thanks for listening, everybody. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. It was certainly entertaining for me to talk to Monika, and I wish you could see her smile.
It's a goofy smile.
I really wish you could see her smile because it's a really good smile.
That's what my face looks like.
So we'll try and get that smile in the photo for you guys, okay? You take care, everyone, and we shall see you on the water soon.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Boat Princess podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you'd like to know more about what I do and where I am, then you can follow me on Instagram at The Boat Princess. You can also sign up to my newsletter on my website, which is theboatprincess.com. Take care of yourselves, everyone, and hopefully we'll see you on the water soon.